Jeanne Kidd, a marble stone sculptor, speaks eloquently of expressing primordial feelings, swirls of the ocean and earth in creation, a life beginning, as she physically connects to the stone through the carving process. Under Jeanne's hands, the cold, hard stone unfolds into a soft, sensuous art form, as Jeanne persists with abiding love while carving and chiseling with drills and hammers. Two of her marble sculptures have been cast into bronze and placed in Jerusalem to honor Holocaust survivors, first responders, and medical care personnel. It is my honor to present Jeanne Kidd, stone sculptor residing in Knoxville, Tennessee.
My name is Jeanne Kidd. I live in Knoxville. I've been here 30 years. Originally from New York, and I'm a stone sculptor. I work in marble and alabaster, and my pieces now are also being made into bronze and showing internationally. I have an installation going in Israel that's going to be 6 feet tall, and that should be going in the next month. So that's a little bit of my story. So the first question people tend to ask is, how long have I been doing this? There's a few questions. One is how long, and how do you get started? So all of what you're going to see today, including my space, has really only been here for the last 4 years. My first ever stone sculpture is actually here on the table. It's this one. I did this in a community college class on Long Island when I was 17. And as soon as I touched the stone, it was like a class where you learned painting and printmaking and drawing and all the, the overarching art techniques. As soon as I hit the stone, I stayed up all night and I couldn't stop. So I fell absolutely in love with working in stone, but then my life took all kinds of twists and turns. So I would tell people for 30 years, I was like, I'm a stone sculptor. But it was actually 3 or 4 years ago where my doctor called and said, I think you're very sick and we need to do a biopsy of your liver. So I'm not sick. I'm actually quite well. But that started me on a path of backing out of my business that I do with my husband. And I said to him, if I have 5 years to live, I have to be an artist. I have to finally really, really commit to this 100%. And so we rearranged things, and we built this whole space onto our house. And as we go, you'll see the work that I've created in the last 4 years. I had already had 500 pounds of alabaster in my garage because a trip to Italy for my 50th birthday inspired the beginnings of this. I was like, I have to start sculpting in stone again. So I had the stone, I had some of my old tools from way back when, and I just pulled one of those pieces out and I started. So the piece that's on here, I call this Shakti, Sleeps. And basically it started out as just form and light and learning how to work with the stone, and then I actually loved her face. And for years, I'd walk by and I'd pat her on the head and say, one day I'm going to wake you up. And nobody knew that. Those were little private moments. But once I got that call from the doctor, I was like, okay, it's time to wake her up. And then this piece was one of my very first stone pieces. So there was one prior to this, which I'll show you outside, but this is called Shakti Wakes. And Shakti is basically the goddess of creation and energy and flow. And a lot of my work, I think, really taps into, I think it's a very feminine source. It's very sultry, it's very sensual, and it is all about kind of energy and sensation and life and what moves us with passion. So my work I did not draw anything before working on this piece. It literally all comes from images in my head. And then the thing about being a stone carver, different from other arts, is I think in reverse. That's the only way I know how to explain it. People will say, how do you know what to do? It's rather than adding on to something to create it, I know what I have to take away. And so that's the process. It's like, well, what doesn't belong in order to show what I want to have be there? And with this one, I fell in love with the lines of the stone, the colors, the textures, the feel. But if you look, there's a line that goes straight down the center, and that just came out of the stone. So there's also a play between what I do and seeing what the stone is going to reveal as well. I'll tell you a funny story, which is also private, but a long time ago, before I got married, I think I was going to a therapist to see, like, was I ready to get married and what issues did I have to deal with? And I said to the man, I said, you know, when I work in stone, the stone speaks to me. And he looked at me, he's like, does it really? I was like, yeah. And I knew he was definitely not the therapist for me because he was trying to see if I was insane. but it really does. So as I work, it's an ongoing conversation between the material and me, and what do I want to express and say, and stories that want to be told. So this piece came, this is marble. And these two are alabaster. This is Italian marble, and this is Italian marble from the same quarry in the north of Italy. It's an area called Carrara, which, if anyone knows marble, that you know Carrara is one of the most important places to get it from. Gorgeous white mountains, they look like they have snow, and it's all this pristine, beautiful marble. So when I first went to Italy to learn to sculpt, there was a studio I was working at, and I found this beautiful piece of stone. And I had just been in Israel, and I saw a painting that was a woman, just a very deco 1920s. And so I was like, I'm going to see if I can sculpt that painting. So I did not do any drawing. I just basically started, I draw on the stone. You can see there's like lines. I kind of draw what I want to take away. And when I started working, the instructor ignored me completely. He didn't know what to teach me, because generally when you see artisans, there's a maquette and there's a model that you measure and you then transfer over onto the piece. I'm brand new at this. I didn't know you do that. So I just start working in the stone. I start drawing in the stone. I start carving. And after 4 days of him not helping me at all, this other instructor walked over and turned around and went, whoa. I was like, what? He's like, you just made that up? I was like, yeah. He said, you're what's called a direct carver. I didn't know what that meant. He said, like Michelangelo, who was a direct carver, you see what needs to be taken away and then reveal what's in the stone. So I work with that in my mind as I'm working. It's like, okay, that's what I'm doing. I'd kind of just see, well, where does the form need to go, and what needs to get taken away. And then someone else who was an instructor I saw last year in Italy was like, start drawing more so your mind can really see what has to go away. It took me a year and a half to get her shipped over from Italy because of COVID and other issues, but she finally got here about a month ago, so I've been working on her at night a lot. And I can't even explain what it's like to touch marble. So the other part of my story is that my grandfather was a marble mason from the north of Italy, from Carrara. And for my 50th birthday, I took my mother back to the village where her parents were born. And I think all those culminations of things just started reawakening this like family history in my blood, artist needing to bring it all together. So anyway, there she is. So this piece is also Italian marble. It's from Carrara. It's beautiful. And part of what's so beautiful, like when you look up close, there's these little crystals that shine in there, and it's so beautiful to work. Part of it is Italian marble is so uniform in its structure that whatever you want it to do, it will do for you. So if I want to dig really deep into a crevice, it's not going to crack off and break unless there's like a break in the stone. But if it's a whole stone, it's going to do whatever you ask it to do. So this piece was just some flowers that I saw in a field in Italy, and I picked them and I used them to work from the form and the shape. And this is 8 days worth of work. So just to kind of get an idea, it was a square block, and it's probably going to take about 2 more months of work to get it from start to finish. How to know when a piece is done? It's a sensation, it's a feeling. For me, I walk around something, and if it catches my eye in a way that is uncomfortable, I know that I have to keep working on it. but I always like to leave something rough. So you'll see in a lot of my work, not so much these pieces, I usually leave some part that's unfinished, or we can see the chisel marks, or something that's very organic looking. So don't necessarily high polish anything. And I'm still learning a ton. So the other thing that's happening, and really has come out of this whole journey of finally stepping out as an artist and letting people see me and my work and just going in 100%, was I went to Israel around that same time, about 4 years ago, as a return trip. I had lived there when I was 16 for 3 months, fell absolutely in love with it. I thought I was going to move, and then didn't. So I got this opportunity to go back, and the dovetail between going to Italy and working in marble and starting to sculpt and starting to build a studio kind of came in with that same trip. And a man who's a friend of my brother-in-law said, I hear you're an artist. We met for coffee. And I said, yeah. He said, let me see your work. And I showed him 2 pictures. And he said, wow, these are really good. How would you like to show in Jerusalem? And the beautiful, amazing part of that story is not only that I'm now getting to show in Jerusalem, but when I first started sculpting, I would say to my husband, I'm going to do this for a year. I'm going to sculpt for a year. I'm going to see if I like it. I'm going to see if I can stay committed to it. I'm going to see if this is really what I think it's going to become for me. And when I show, I want to show in a big city. And I would just say that over and over again. I was like, I'm not worried about selling right now. I'm not worried about pushing it, showing. I just want to make sure this is real. And then it's going to be a big city. So my first exhibition was in the heart of Jerusalem. So his name is Sam Philip. He's been an associate of mine now for the last 4 years. With his tutelage and his guidance, he took my stone sculpture designs and we made bronze molds of them. We enlarged them and we made them into bronze designs. And 3 of them got to be displayed for a year on exhibition in the heart of Jerusalem in a place called Mamilla. Mamilla, if anyone has been in Israel, is a very prominent tourist destination, very high-end shops. So I got to show in a big city for my first exhibition. I now have 2 sculptures in the Hadassah Hospital lobby there. I have a sculpture that was put in this past June that's 4 feet tall that honors Holocaust survivors, that was commissioned by one single family to honor their family that was lost in the Holocaust. And now in production is one of my designs. It's a heart. It's called the Heart of the Matter. And the project is called the Healing Hearts Project. It's a 6 foot tall sculpture in bronze that is going outside. It's called Mogen David Adom Medical Center. So that is the volunteer organization in Israel that does the blood drives. They're the ones who organized all the vaccines, why Israel has vaccinated almost half their population already. It's Mogen David Adom. So one of my sculptures is going outside their medical center to honor those first responders. My hope in time is to find the patron so that some of that funding can actually go support all the medical needs there. So I am very much in the middle of not just stone sculpting, but my work is now developing, and I'm actually in a conversation about bringing one of those here to Knoxville to have a sister piece, again, to work with medical centers and health issues. So I do have a bronze piece out on the deck. I'll show you the difference between the original and how it got transformed to bronze. But that's also, that is an art that I've fallen madly in love with. It's still 3-dimensional. It shows light and dark, and I get to see the stone sculptures in a bigger, more pronounced way. It's almost like it accentuates all the lines. So anyway, Israel is my soul's home. I love going there. I've been there 7 times in the last 4 years. COVID has kept me here in Knoxville. And thank goodness I have the studio during this time, because I spend a lot of nights out here just working and working and working through this time period. So anyway, Israel's my love, what's happening with my art over there. And now it's coming back to America. There's a gallery in Key West. this is great. This guy saw my work online on Facebook and called me up and said, I want your work in my gallery. So last month I drove it down to Florida, and he has four or five of my bronzes at this point. So yeah, that's my story with Israel. So this sculpture is called Duet. It was named by my mother. I had all kinds of names for it, but this is also an Italian Carrara marble from the same area, but you can see it has more color in it. And the color just comes from different minerals that get embedded in the rock as it compresses. So what, I don't know if everybody knows that marble comes from sea creatures. It's basically calcium from like shells that get compressed. So actually when you work marble, you can smell the ocean, which is really cool. But the coloration is just other minerals that get added in. So what I love about this piece, one is, for me, this was just a learning experience. It was one where, again, I didn't measure anything, but I wanted that tension between that, like, these don't touch. And I wanted to see how much I could push the stone, what I could learn to how deep could I go before it would break. And then the other thing about this shape is, to me, it's like a couple in tension, like who's going to have more control, or are they in love, are they not in love, or they're in partnership, are they not in partnership? So it's like this dance. They're always connected, but neither one is above or below the other. So that was very intentional for me to not have to keep these as level as possible. And again, this was all by eye. I did no measuring. So anyway, it's beautiful to touch. And someone said earlier, like, my work is I want people to touch it. And it's very common with art to be like, don't touch, don't touch. My theme is more like, please touch, because I think that's the experience then of what I'm trying to relay through the work, which is always about sensation. It's about emotion, sensation, something that we can't always put words on that's trying to be expressed through our bodies. So it's all very physical. And then there's something incredibly sensual about touching the softness of the stone, even though it's a hard material. I mean, I'm working with rock, but somehow it always comes out soft and smooth and like, yeah, I don't know, like pillows. So anyway, that's Duet. It's on a granite base. This piece is alabaster. It is one of my first stone sculptures when I started back again. I call it Guardian. She came from just a dream. I just had a dream one night of this like owl angel figure, and I decided to sculpt it. I had none of these tools yet. I did not have the studio yet. I was working with some kind of a sander that my neighbors started calling. They're like, can you please stop making that noise? Because it was like, wah! So eventually I got the right tools and started figuring it out. But this was one of my first pieces. This piece then became one of the bronze. This is a bronze, so this is not stone. And it was modeled after this one. This sat in Jerusalem. This was one of the Jerusalem pieces, so this was on exhibition for a year in the heart of Jerusalem. And I love it because you can see how many thousands of people probably touch this piece, because the patina is a little bit worn off. So again, I love that people touched it. I love that it's a little bit worn out. And this one I will keep. This one will stay with me just because it has so much meaning. A lot of people think it's stone. So I had the guys who did the patina, which is the coloration, make it look like stone. And you can do all kinds of things with patina, all kinds of colors. You can make it look crayon colors or like stone or bronze, so it looks just like metal, which a lot of people think of when they think of bronze work. So that's Guardian. This is my first ever marble sculpture. And it has multiple names. I call it Arousal now, but it was actually called Twin Flame when I first started doing it. And this week someone said, oh, that looks to me like two flames becoming one. So I still don't know what to call it. But basically it started out as a block. of marble. I knew that I wanted to do something that was rising up, something that was like about passion, because I was getting to finally express all of this desire to work in stone. And so it is very much like that igniting sensation of passion. And yeah, just kept working it. Sometimes I put water in it so that it's like fire and water. Just becomes, this one lives in my house also, but they're all for sale eventually, I think. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just really nice to touch. Oh, and I mentioned earlier, like, the back is rough. So you can see this is what the raw marble looks like. So very feminine, masculine, sensual, all that life force energy is pretty much what I express most of the time.